All right, Cameron. Cameron, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I was born in Fontana, California. Grew up in Ontario and Riverside and San Bernardino, mostly.
Tell me about your family growing up.
So my mom was, she was born into a really good family, a middle-class family in Ontario, California. She was the youngest, but I'm the only grandchild that was born out of wedlock. So I was born in 1969. My mom had just turned 18 when she had me. And it was kind of a thing that set me apart in the family. It was a large family. So I have four aunts and uncles. And there's probably 18 grandchildren. It's a big family all along, in Southern California.
Same dad with your siblings?
No, different fathers. So that's actually a really interesting point. My mom and dad met in Green Valley Lake, California, while my dad was back from Vietnam. He had got a field commission, and they had put him through OCS, and then he was on his way back to Vietnam, stopped into California where he was from for some liberty, met my mom, spent some time with my mom, and then he went back to Vietnam, and my mom was pregnant and had me. And so I didn't get to meet my dad until some of the troubles happened and stuff. So at first it was just me and my mom. And then when I was 8, my mom met my stepdad, and they got married, and I had a father figure, which was really cool. Mike Mitchell he was a neat guy. But the marriage only lasted about 4 years. And when it came apart, my mom didn't handle it well. She had some mental health issues and then a substance use disorder. And for a while, it was just me and her and my little brother. And I became like the enabler in the family. You know what I mean? Like, I took care of her when she was passed out. I lied to my grandparents for her. I did the things in that part of the family that, I kind of tried to be the man of the house. And when I was 13, all of her addiction and mental health issues kind of culminated, and she had a suicide attempt. And I was the one that found her.
With 2 sons?
Yeah. She had cut herself and bled out like she had, and it was, I remember it very vividly. I could still to this day remember when I kicked the door open, her bedroom door open, because she wouldn't answer her door. Finally, I kicked it open, and that smell of the blood that had been in there all day as she sat there all day. So I had to try to keep my little brother out of the room and get a hold of the paramedics. And at that point in my life, I was 13. I was already on probation because I had gone swimming in the high school pool after hours. Right, a few of my friends had both climbed the fence and went swimming, got in trouble, trespassing charge. So when the cops got there, they're like, "You're going to have to come with us." And I said, "Okay, I'll go get my stuff," and out my bedroom window. And that's really where my running started. That reaction, that coping mechanism, became my trademark for many years of my life. I ran. And so I spent a few months on the streets of Southern California. This is in the late 70s, until I got beat up real bad. It was probably 3 months. And then I got into a fight with a grown man, and he beat the crap out of me, like fractured my cheekbones, put me in the hospital. And that's how they caught up with me. Was indoctrinated into the criminal justice system as a runaway, became a ward of the court of California, and then juvenile hall and CYA, and eventually I went out to this boys ranch on the Mojave, and that's where my biological father found me. My grandma had tried to find my dad, and when he heard about all this, he was like, "Hey man, let me help you. Let me get you out of there." And so he moved me to Colorado, and everything was okay for a while. Like, I suppressed a lot, right? I had a lot of childhood anger. Like, all of us with substance use disorders, we have this childhood trauma, and we cope with it different ways. And I was angry. I was bitter with my mom, and a lot of blaming and blame shifting. But everything was good for a while. I dropped out of high school with my dad when I was living with my dad. And he basically just said, "Hey, you don't want to go to school? You got to get a job. Get your GED, get a job," which I did.
How far did you go in school?
I got my GED, and then that's it.
But as far as going,
see, I was a sophomore. Yeah, sophomore. So yeah, 10th grade. So pretty early. I was 15. 15, I stopped going to school, got a job at 16. And then my dad, I met a girl, had a child, and, pretty much I was just surviving. I had a ground maintenance job, had my own little place with my girl and my kid. But I wasn't really going anywhere in life. And my dad was like, hey man, there's going to be a war in the Gulf. You need to go. And so he wanted me to join the service, which I did. I joined the Navy. I served with Amphibious Ready Group 3, the tail end of Desert SEAL, Desert Storm, LHA number 5, USS Peleliu. I would never claim any combat trauma or anything like that, but being over there had a big effect on me. When I came back, it became very difficult for me to keep suppressing that stuff from my childhood. I started drinking more, and that stuff started to come out of me. My marriage fell apart. I got kicked out of the military. I took an other than honorable discharge out of the military. I was introduced to methamphetamine while I was out here in California. And immediately I had found something I could use to escape, right? And I did.
Is that what got you out of the military?
Yeah. I popped hot crossing the quarterdeck one day, and then they didn't really look. They're not responsible for clearing up my trauma or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like for a while in my life, with all my victim stance bullshit that I went through as an addict, I blamed them for a long. Now, if they had only done, no, that's not true, man. That's not true. They did what they could for me, and I didn't want any of it. And basically, I just signed a paper so I could be out, and I was out. And then my life spiraled into the criminal justice system, right? I came back to Colorado, and at first it was just traffic tickets, but my addiction continued, right? It was just on the weekends. I was just snorting a little lines or maybe smoking a little, held a job here and there, but, my life was just, I wasn't dealing with anything. And so it gradually began to eat away at my character and continue to fall into the criminal justice system. Eventually, my marriage completely fell apart. I had gotten charged with a possession, then a stolen car, looking back at it, it was just, I would have these brief moments of sobriety in county jail, and I'd try to get my shit back together, but I was in complete denial of the responsibility of it, right? Like, I couldn't accept that I still had all these, I was still blaming everybody. I blamed my mom. I blamed the service. I had all these justifications, right? I lived by personal justifications. And things continued to spiral for 20 years. I was in and out of the criminal justice system. I did four sentences inside. Just little cases, like I said, possession, stolen car, stolen property. But the truth is that like I had a drug problem before I went to prison. And then once I went to prison, I learned how to be a criminal. I started to identify with the mindsets inside, right? The us against them mentality, fuck the cops, fuck them, fuck this. And I started to realize that I had this rage inside of me and I can gain notoriety from my rage. Do you know what I mean? Like I started to use violence and power and stuff to establish myself, gain respect, that kind of thing. And I did many different, I was involved in many different things. For a while, like there were times when I was moving weight, like I was moving quarter pounds or half pounds of methamphetamine a day, and I was rolling in bank and I had things. But there were other times when I was a complete street junkie, right? Had lost everything, had everything in a backpack, would shoplift so I could eat. Eventually the addiction always would get the better of me and I would grind down into that same kind of running mentality. The same thing that I did when I went out that bedroom window, right? Backpack in my hand and on the street running. My issues were specifically surrounding my mom. I had a poor attachment strategy. I remember feeling a lot of abandonment from her and anger towards her, and that really developed into what's codependence. So all of my relationships were codependent. And finally, the universe, God, source, whatever you want to call it, created the perfect storm for me. And I met somebody who was like the exact match to all of my issues, right? She was a nurse like my mom. She had the same mental health issues as my mom. Everything matched. And we spiraled completely out of control to where I had justified in my head committing armed robberies. So in 2010, I met her, and I started committing armed robberies all throughout the Denver metro area. Businesses, and I had done tough guy shit throughout the game. You know what I mean? I had done collections. I had beat people up. I had done stuff. I had never once got in trouble for any of that. For that game only stuff, never gotten in trouble. The moment I started committing crimes against citizens, because that was kind of a thing for me. Like, as long as this was another personal justification, right? If they're in the game and they get their ass beat and their shit taken, they knew the job was dangerous when they took it. Right? I don't feel bad about that. You knew what was up. You did this shit. Hey, and I would look for reasons to cross people out, right? If I caught you selling bad dope, if I caught you selling dope to kids, if I caught you beating on women, bet I could cross you out, go kick in your door and take your shit. That was my game. But when I got mixed up with Amber, like I said, she was like this perfect fit. And all of these enabling feelings started to come out where I had to try to save her. I was trying to save her and her kids like I couldn't save my mom. Part of the story I left out was that, when I was 13, my mom had a suicide attempt. When I went to prison in 2004 for the second time, my mom finished the job while I was in. And so it was like 3 months before I was about to be released, and I had all these thoughts like, Mom, why the fuck couldn't you just wait for me to get out? I'd have been out there, right? I was still basically trying to take care of her, trying to rescue her. So when I met Amber, this was my opportunity to redeem myself, right? And so I had justified going into businesses, stealing cars by gunpoint. Like I'd jacked car, or not, I broke into cars before and stole them that way. I used to have a gig where hand car washes, where they actually wash them by hand. I would sit back off these car wash places, man, and see what kind of clothes they wore. Like, they have a certain color shirt and hat. I'd go buy that at the Arc. And then I'd wait for that car to come right off the end of the line, and I'd just act like I was one of the workers and go walk in, jump in that car, and just drive out with a BMW or a Mercedes. Nice little lick. Anyways, looking back over my crime, that time of my life, there is a certain freedom that comes when you don't care about the law anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, you really can be free in, like, I have a family. Like, once you find your tribe, your people, and you're running with your tribe and you're strapped up and you're down to do whatever, there is this freedom that you feel in connection that's amazing. It feels like, I don't know, it feels truly free. But I got wrapped up with Amber, and yeah, it spiraled bad real quick. Within 3 months, we had gotten into an altercation with a security guard. I had figured, so here's the truth. If I sell drugs, I do a drug deal. As soon as the drug deal's over, as long as I didn't sell to a narc, the chances of me getting arrested for that, very slim, right? But if you rob businesses and banks, they're looking for you. They don't just you can just get away with it. And especially if you start hitting several licks and you get a pattern down. I knew for a fact there is a group of men who are trying to find me right now. Like, I knew that. Once I had committed several of them throughout the town, I'm like, okay, there's a team looking for us. So I knew I had to stop. And so the very night that I had this plan. I was like, okay, if I get rid of the gun, I tell this girl, because here's how it went down. Like, the first lick, I had just done it to pay the rent and our phone bills and get us all back up to speed, right? To get the apartment was falling apart. Wasn't going to let that happen. So I justified going out, hitting a lick, came back, paid off the rent, phone bills. And then like 2 days later, she found the ski mask and the gun, and she figured out how I did it, because I didn't even tell her about it, right? And then with her own issues, she was like, oh yeah, she just thought we were gonna solve all of our problems now with armed robberies, right? And she just went on this craze, like she started planning jobs, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, girl? You can't be. So it progressed real fast. And basically what was happening was my character was deteriorating. Like I used to have these, like even as you could tell probably while I'm talking, like I have this romantic feeling about it. Like I was somehow the hero in this setting. But the truth was, man, I hurt people that didn't deserve it. I scared the shit out of regular citizens. Like I traumatized people. And looking back at that now, man, that hurts me. That makes me feel bad about that shit. But so we wound up in that altercation with the security guard. And I tried to get away. I backed into his car. He got out of his car, pulled out his gun, and then shot at us as we drove away and shot Amber. I wrecked the car, and then they were on us, right? So 2 different cities, Denver and Jefferson County police surrounded the vehicle, the whole get out of the car, the whole scene. She's bleeding in the car. They were able to pin that car on several robberies. They found the gun, they found the ski mask, and I wound up sitting in Jefferson County Jail. Well, actually, you know, when they put the cuffs on me and everything, one of my first thoughts was, man, it's over. Like I felt good that it was over. Like there was some relief, like it's over. And they put me back in the car, and I passed out. And they left me at the crime scene for 6 hours. They didn't take me to jail until early in the morning. And I slept that whole time, like, because I had been up for weeks or months. And I woke up in Jeffco looking at about 608 years. The first time I met my attorney.
608 years for how many crimes?
A whole string, pardon me?
How many crimes?
A total of about 17.
Oh,
and then the bitches. So I had, previous to that, I had 9 felony convictions before that. Right? So now they don't really have a strike clause in Colorado. What they do is it depends on what crimes they are, and they can hit you with the big or the little bitch. And so they charge me with the big bitch, which is ×4. It's the max on any crime you're convicted of, and then ×4. So with all the crimes that I had actually committed, like I was looking at the rest of my life. And like I never forget this scene. So I go in, I had slept for weeks. Finally I go in to see my lawyer. And she's got her feet up on the desk, right? And she's got the folder. I can't even see her face. And she looks over the folder and she goes, you're fucked. And I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, you want the good news or the bad news? I said, well, what's the good news? She goes, the good news is you're only looking at 608 years. I said, how is that good news? She said, it's not a life sentence, Cameron. And I was like, okay, I get that. What's the bad news? She said, the bad news is your co-defendant told him everything. And my heart just dropped, man. Like, so basically I knew at that point, you know, I was at the mercy of the court, and I had done all of the crimes that they were accusing me of. Like I looked at the thing, you know, my heart sank, to say the least. And I went back to my cell and I couldn't sleep anymore. And it was probably about 2 a.m. And I knocked, the guy was coming around for count. It was Hammersmith. And I said, hey man, dude, I can't sleep anymore. Can I get a book off the cart? He's like, I'll pop you out, Lundstrom. So he popped me out. And I went down the book cart. And on this book cart in county jail at 2 o'clock in the morning, I found 2 books that saved my life right there. The first one was called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the reason it caught me was because my dad had mailed me that very book when I was on my way back from the Gulf War. And I had read it, but I was 22 years old at the time, so I didn't have the discipline to turn it into habits, but I thought it was great stuff. And I saw that book and I was like, oh yeah, Dad sent me that. And so it like sparked something. And I started to go back up to my cell and I turned and something in my head said, grab the other one too. And I looked back and Sun Tzu's The Art of War is sitting there next to it. Those are huge finds in a county jail, bro. Mostly it's just Louis L'Amour and, you know, that kind of stuff. Here are some jewels. And so I snatched him up. I learned how to strategy and how to fight my case from Sun Tzu. And I learned how to rebuild my character and really take responsibility for my actions with the 7 habits. And I started to work right on myself, right in county jail. The first thing was taking full responsibility for the consequences of my actions. Because the truth is, right there, I was blaming the security guard. That motherfucker, because he was jamming me up. Like, the security guard jammed us up because I was parked in a permit-only parking spot at an apartment complex. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You don't even have the... The first thing he asked me was like, can I see the registration to the car? I'm like, fuck no, dude. Get the hell away from the car. You're not even a cop, right? And that's why I got into an argument with him. I'm like, get the hell out of here, dude. So I had a justification, right? I'm like, it's the security guard's fault. That's why I'm in here. So 13 months it took me to fight that case. And I was sitting there at one point. In Colorado, they have a deadline for at the motions hearing. Motions is when they'll pull the deals off. They'll offer you deals. And what they were offering me was 10 to 32 open sentencing. Okay, which I knew I was a 9-time felon. Like, I'm not getting a minimum range or even a medium range. I'm going to get hammered. So, plus I wanted to go to trial because I wanted this dude to face him shooting at us, right? But I had this moment right before the motions hearing, and it was about personal. The truth is that, that security guard, he did overreact. He got angry for his car getting hit, and he overreacted, and he shouldn't have fired those shots at people who were fleeing. That's illegal. But I put him in that situation. Nobody else. I did. It was my actions that did that. So that moment, and that I took responsibility, I think allowed me to accept the deal. I'm sure it did. It allowed me to accept the deal. And then eventually I took so I had 2 counties that were charging me. One's for the robberies and one for the altercation with the security guard. And I wound up taking 2 violent 15s with the COV statute, stacked end to end. So it was 30 years. 30 years is a crime of violence in Colorado, which means that you have to do at least 75% of your time. So I'd have to do 20 years before I could see the parole board. Technically, as I'm making this, I have 6 more years to do before I can see the parole board. But I'm out here completely off paper because the truth is when you change in here, things out here will change. But let me get ahead. Let me get back to the story. I got to prison. Again, they sent me to Buena Vista. And Buena Vista is they call it gladiator school. Like it's but I had read the 7 habits and I was trying to be a different man. I was trying to live by principles. And that started to take hold in how I perceived my sentence, right? Instead of looking at my sentence like, damn, I've got 30 years to do. It's like, fuck, man, I've only got 30 years. If I'm going to change, I better get on it now. That mindset completely changed the way I did my time. And I got some early blessings. I was able to get into vocational training. From that vocational training, I was able to transfer out of Buena Vista and get to a different joint where they actually taught 7 habits in a class, which was really cool. So I took the class, and then I started help teaching it. And so those first years on this last sentence were mostly working on myself, right? I was still kind of self-centered on trying to change me. And then this odd thing really happened in 2016, and I found this lump in my neck. I was shaving. Oh, man, I got a lump. Rode a kite. Went to medical. Took them a couple months to get me into medical. They just said, yeah, you got a lymph node infection. You'll be fine. It'll go away. Okay. A couple months later, it's still there. Go back. Anyways, it takes them 15 months to send me to a doctor. And by the time they send me to this doctor, it was 3 lumps now. And they sent me to this little old lady in Pueblo, Colorado. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, Pueblo, I'm going to get some shit doctor. It's going to suck. And this lady saved my life. Her name was Charlene. I went in there. She's a little old lady. Like, I sat in the chair, all shackled up in orange. And she was looking at me eye to eye, standing up, right? And she looks at me and she feels my neck, and she introduces herself. And about 3 minutes into it, she looks right in my face and she goes, I see this all the time, Cameron. I know exactly what that is. That's metastatic squamous cell carcinoma. It's got about a 5-year survival rate. I think you've had it for 2 years. We're gonna do some tests today, but I want you to go back to the facility and eat like it's your job. And so I spent an hour and a half riding in the back of a van, shackled, with 14 years before I saw the parole board and what I thought was 3 years left to live. And that completely shifted my paradigm again, because by the time I had gotten back to the facility, I had accepted that I may die in this concrete box, like this is it. But I get to decide who that man is that they're gonna put in the ground. And so I wrote on a little piece of paper, is this worthy of your time? And I stuck it next to my TV set, because really, like, if you got 3 years to live, are you really gonna watch another episode of Family Guy? Is that what you're gonna do with your time, bro? Right? I decided I wasn't gonna do that. And so I just started to give everything I had away. And I don't mean like my television or my sweats or things like that. I mean what I had inside. And I started working with my brothers on in the pod, right? Just talking and finally listening to people. Not with like trying to respond or trying to heal them or anything like that, just listening to understand. Let me understand this man and what has happened to him. And this crazy thing happened to me. Like, it was like I had really found what I was supposed to be doing, because I felt so fulfilled. And it started, I think, to really heal me. I don't know if your camera can see this scar on my neck. So I wound up having to do surgery. That little old lady performed the surgery. And then I had to do radiation and chemotherapy from the inside of a prison cell. But I had another amazing thing that happened, right? The whole prison got behind me. Like, they made up these little stickers. They had somebody who worked out in the furniture shop who illegally got on a computer and had these little stickers printed up that said "Cam beats cancer." And they passed them out all through the city, or all through the facility. And you'd see them everywhere, right? And the whole facility got behind me, and wound up going and did 7 rounds of chemotherapy, 33 rads of radiation. I lost 38 pounds in 7 weeks. And then I was on a feeding tube for another almost a year. And that experience, of course, was very, when the truth is like, I wasn't expecting to survive. But I really think that because I got out of my own head, that I wasn't really worried about what was happening to me, but instead continued to focus on others, that's what allowed that healing to come in. That same year, so the same year I'm doing this, 2018, my 35C motion gets granted, and I get back into court. And they say to me, Cameron, we're ready to do your 35C hearing today, but if you'd let us, we'd like to resentence you based on what you've done in prison. And my lawyer was like, yeah, I should let him do this, right? And I'll never forget what they said, because the same district attorney had lied or exaggerated in order to get my sentences stacked. Now she stands up and she says, as a prosecutor, I must believe in the possibility of rehabilitation, but it has become so rare that it is special when it happens. The state does not object to any of Mr. Lundstrom's claims. And she sits down. And then the judge is like, today I get to feel like a judge. I spent all my week aggravating sentences. Today I'm gonna mitigate one. And they basically took 20 years off me. So I walked into that courtroom, 12 years to the parole board. I walked out 2 years past my parole eligibility date, and was paroled in 2019, a year after beating cancer. So today, as I'm speaking, I'm 5 years cancer-free, and it's amazing, right?
And you're free.
And I'm free. But how does that actually happen? How do you go from being a junkie, scumbag, lying thief to now all of these blessings are coming into my life, right? That has to have meaning. There's something there. I kind of got ahead of myself telling my story, and I want to back up a little bit in that one of the things that kept me locked in, I think as I've worked with my clients, I've found this to be common. I only speak for myself, but this is a common theme, and one of them is that we don't let go of the trauma or the crimes, the guilt and the shame that we hold on to that keep us locked into that addictive things. It's so much ingrained in us, it's hard to let go of it. And one of them for me was that I was an abusive and neglectful parent. So I have 2 daughters from that marriage, that first marriage. And I hadn't talked to them for 15 years at that point that I was locked up. I had never beat or hurt them, but they had seen me get violent with their mom. They had seen me commit violence on other men at the house. Like they were scared of me, and that was something I couldn't accept about myself. Right? I could accept being a tough guy, and I could accept all this other bullshit, but actually, my own children fearing me. That moment, and that all came about right about with my cancer diagnosis. Right? I really started to look at trying to heal this before I go. Like once I accepted, man, you've only got 3 years, brother. You might want to try to fix some things before you go. And I started writing letters to my daughter, and they didn't come back. She didn't answer me. My youngest, she was still living with her mom, and her stepdad, who was a prison guard in Texas. And that letter immediately came back. It came right back to my case manager, and they said, hey, you have a direct order not to write to this address anymore. I was like, okay. But my oldest, I started writing to Heather, and they didn't come back. And so I just kept writing every 2 weeks, every month, for like over a year. I didn't tell her I had cancer. I just told her I was going to have to change facilities for a little while on some medical issues, but I would keep writing. And then it was actually right after one of my chemo sessions. It's count time. I'm sitting there getting sick in the toilet in the cell, coming back from chemo. And count time is when they pass out mail. And I'm sitting there, and they slide this letter under my door, and it like slides right underneath the count light where I could see it. And I'm looking at that name, and I could see, man, it's Heather. And like when I think about it, I still get the hairs raising up on my arms. And I had to get it, I had to open it. And I remember that first paragraph. She said, Dad, I forgave you a long time ago. I figured you were just going through your own stuff. But the truth is, the only reason I'm writing this letter today is because you never stopped trying. And so that had a huge impact. But so did the next sentence. After that, she said, but I don't really have a lot of time for you right now in my life. So if you would like to keep writing, you can, but I won't have time to write you back. And so she was honest with me, right? She could be real. And so I kept writing. That was my I think another big transitional moment in that, overcoming that guilt and shame from being that man and hurting the people that I'm tasked to take care of, right? My kids, people who love me, people I love. This also allowed me to transcend what I was holding against my mom. How could I sit here and feel guilt and shame or anger and resentment against my mom? What happened when I was a kid if I did the same thing to my kids, man? So all of this progresses, it leads to my own growth, right? That's the amazing thing in my life. And the reason I wanted to tell this story is because there is hope. Like I was a junkie, scumbag, lying thief for 25 years. Man, I hurt hundreds of people. And today, let me tell you what's happening today. So I got out in 2019. I just started, I felt this, if I'm getting out, this must be for a reason. Like, how did I just get out of prison and beat cancer? And so I started working with my brothers that were on parole with me. And people just on my, on my same parole officer's caseload. Like before, last time I had been on parole, if you got caught talking to another convict, you're both going back, right? There was a no association order in Colorado. You're not allowed to talk to other people on parole. Now, they're giving people direct orders. Go talk to Cameron. I want you to go talk to Cameron. So I just started working with my brothers while I was on parole. And I wound up working on this case. One of them had a DHS case. He was having a CPS case, right? Child Protective Services. They were trying to take his kids away from me. Wow, oddly, I have this whole experience in my life, right? I had gone through the child welfare system, like I had been exposed, like I had lost contact with my own children, like maybe I could really help this guy become a parent again. And it worked. I worked with this guy for almost a year. He wound up getting his parental rights back. He got a job. He got his own, and man, I felt great. And the attorney in that case, she's like, hey, Cameron, they just got a grant to start a parent advocacy program in Denver, in Colorado. You should go apply for the job. And I did. I went down to the same building that the Supreme Court is in Colorado. That's where the ORPC is. The ORPC is the Office of Respondent Parent Counsel. I went down to this interview, and there are these three power women, right? All lawyers and administrators for this agency. And they interview me for 3 hours. Like, they want to know everything. They want the whole story, right? And afterwards, they're like, you can go get you can sit outside. We want to talk for a second. I went out of the room and I went and got a glass of water. And by the time I had maybe only taken a couple of drinks off the water, and they're like, come back in the room. I did. And they said, okay, we're going to give you a chance. You got the job. So for the 2 years, I was the only parent advocate in the state of Colorado. I piloted the program for them, which was amazing. I was able to work with, I probably had 40 cases. It was an amazing experience that those ladies trusted me enough to go in and help people become parents again. It was an amazing period of my life, very fulfilling. In 2022, I was selected by the American Bar Association as a reunification hero. It was a great honor to get that, to win that award. And then, but my real passion is, of course, convicts, right? The justice involved, not necessarily DHS, but those struggling with incarceration and addiction. And so I started my own company, NAS Recovery Solutions. NAS stands for a nap and a sandwich, because that's what my ass needed. And that's exactly what they gave you as soon as they throw you in county jail, right? Here's a bologna sandwich, take a nap, motherfucker. And it started out with just me, right? Just me. Eventually, I was able to get my own electronic health record, and I hired a couple of people to help me. And today, as I'm talking here right now, we have 28 coaches, 4 clinicians, where we work in 10 different halfway houses, 2 different treatment centers. We work all along the whole Front Range. It has just exploded. And really, the core of that is, of course, first, taking full responsibility for where you're at, right? Until you do that, you can't move forward from this stuff. But then, backing that up with action, right? We do a lot of inspired action. So thoughts generate feelings, which create behaviors, which generate results, right? And a lot of the work that is done in the SUD, at least in Colorado, is a lot of cognitive work, right? MRT, CBT, DBT. These are all cognitive ways, and that's the core. But you have to follow up with recognizing and utilizing your feelings, and then what are the behaviors, right? So the actions, you got to take action. So at NAS, that's primarily where we focus. We want to go through the whole spectrum, right? We work on mindset, we work on managing our feelings or utilizing our feelings, and then taking inspirational action and moving forward. It's been like, the whole reason I wanted to tell this story really is to talk to anybody who's still out there, especially you long-timers. Like, if you've been in the game for a long time, there is hope, brother. Like, I had 30 years. I had been in the dope game and a junkie for 20. Like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. The truth is, it all starts with yourself. It starts in here. Life really comes from the internal to the external. I know it seems like for so long, I was reactive. I was just reacting to my situation and my past and my circumstances. When I went inside and I just focus in here and manage what's really inside, the outside just takes care of itself. I want to tell about this little thing, though, real quick, okay? So when I was running amok, I was learning lessons. And here's one of them I learned that was very important to me. So I got out of prison one time. It's a shitty thing to say, right? This one time I got out of prison, and I got dropped off downtown at the bus stop with $100, no place to live, right? And immediately I was like, I slept one night in City Park, and I was like, you know what? Fuck this. And I went and bought a cell phone, a Cricket $50 phone, and I went to my people and said, put me to work, and they gave me a sack of dope and a gun, go make some money. So I'm selling drugs down in downtown Denver, and I'd usually been in the outskirts of the Denver metro area. And I'm selling down on the 16th Street Mall. And at this point, I'm like 35 years old, but there's this crew down there called the Gutter Punks. I don't know if it's a national gang, but they're pretty big in Colorado, the Gutter Punks. And really, they do everything from buskers, right? They'll sing songs out on the mall and try to raise money, or they sell drugs, or they steal things. And anyways, they're just kids, though. They're like, in mid-20s or early 20s, late teens. And I start selling to them. And we're in this trap house one night. And this thing about, like, when I was in the military, I got in the habit of telling everybody I loved him. Before you leave, I said, I love you, brother. And we say it in the joint, too. I love you, brother. So it's just a habit of mine. And so I started when I said it to these kids. First night I sold them a bunch of dope in this house, and I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. I love you guys. And they're like, fuck you, creep, get away from me, right? They gave me this it's kind of creepy. It's like, no, it's not like that, bro. I love you. I love your life. Be good. So this is the beginning of the summer. A couple months go by, right? And I do it every time I see them. And I'm selling to them regularly. I'm hanging out with them. I'm trying to take them under my wing. And they start saying it back to me. Right? They start saying, love you, Cam. Love you, Cam. And like, I get up to leave from the room and everybody, love you, Cam. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And a couple months more go by. This is like now at the end of the summer. And I start hearing them saying it to each other. And I thought to myself, that was like an epiphany I had. This is like when I was still in my major addiction. But I was like, man, one person can have an effect. Like, it sat in with me. Like, seeing that, if you stay true to your beliefs, if you can be this person who can affect change in other people, you can be a transitional person. It had an effect on me. Today, my life, I have a great life. I have a good relationship with both my daughters. It's still work. We're still healing all that old trauma. I'm still learning how to be a parent. Don't think that, you get. Today, this May will be 14 years in recovery, but that doesn't mean my life got any easier. I still now I'm just present to actually deal with it, right? That's the thing. I still make mistakes. Sometimes I say the wrong things. Sometimes I overreact. I'm a human being. Those things still happen. But now I'm actually present and I don't run anymore, right? That was the thing. I was always running. So life can change for you. Like, I have a beautiful wife, an amazing wife now that's joined me in my cause. Last year I actually bought a house, my first house without wheels, dude. So really, that's why I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to talk about is that if it can happen for me, it can happen for anybody. If you have a family member who is inside prison right now, especially if they have an SUD, this is where they need to do the groundwork, right? I truly believe that it was those years, those foundational years in prison, that I worked specifically on my character that is now creating the existence I have today, right? It's like the seed creates the fruit. So if you are dealing with that, I don't know if you'd be able to communicate with them, but the truth is that if they have to seek for it, they have to go out there and find the books, find the knowledge, get hungry, but it will blossom. It will change your life. There is hope at the other end. Do you have any other questions?
No, that's beautiful, Cameron. Great story.
Yeah.
It's nice to see. It's
Like,
nice to see redemption.
I love what I do. There are almost 700 clients, 700 people that we work with along the Front Range that are moving forward, staying out of prison. It's great to be a part of this, right? And really, I don't know where you're at spiritually, but like, Here's some truth as an addict. I'm speaking to all the addicts out there, right? You ever had one of those days where everything goes wrong at once, right? Like you have to get across town, all of a sudden you get in the car, you're on your way over there, you get a flat tire, you get out to fix the flat tire, you lock the keys in the car, you have to break out the little window so you can get the key unlocked, you open up the trunk, now there's no spare tire, right? Like one thing after another goes wrong. The truth is though, when you start getting right, when you start doing whatever you're created to do, and here's what I mean, is like there's a purpose. Each one of us has a purpose, and I think it really goes around our trauma. Our trauma really generates what purposes we have to serve in the community. But you get in tune with that, and everything starts to go right. It's amazing how it transfers like that. Yeah.
Beautiful story.
Thanks, brother.
It's nice to see redemption actually happens.
Yeah.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.